2 weeks away from the biggest competition of my life, IPL Worlds. It's going to be held in Alabama this year. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, well, at least since I started powerlifting, to not only qualify to compete at Worlds, but to actually compete, and who knows, maybe even get a medal place on the podium. I was fortunate enough to compete at Nationals twice. They held those competitions here in Vegas. They used to hold Worlds here in Vegas. But what makes competing at Worlds so difficult is the fact that usually for the last few years it's been out of the country. And it's, you know, it can be quite the reach to be able to put enough money together to travel to Europe, time off work, and everything that goes with that, getting a passport, all that stuff. So when I heard that it was coming back to the United States due to everything that was going on overseas, I saw this as my big opportunity, finally. I had qualified to compete at Worlds a couple of times, but it just was unrealistic for me to go overseas. What makes Worlds so special? Well, basically, it is the highest level an amateur can compete at. Anything above Worlds would be considered professional, such as competing at the Olympia. Competing at the Olympia is invitational only. It's a multiply lifting, and you generally are, at that point, you're a sponsored athlete. Not anybody could just show up and compete, no matter what your numbers are. You have to be invited. So for the average athlete like myself, being able to compete at the highest level, it's an honor. It's a dream come true. But I'm running into some serious problems. After all this training, after all of the blood, sweat, and tears that I've put into this, I'm facing the reality that I might not be able to complete the competition. A little over a week ago, when I was bench pressing, something popped in my shoulder, and I haven't been right since. Now, I haven't told anybody about this except for Bobby, and chances are I will be able to bench. But I am scared to death to get under the barbell. I'm scared to test it out. I'm in a considerable amount of pain. I put a couple of plates on a bar and just pressed it, and I didn't have too much issues. But I just have this sneaking suspicion that once I put a significant load on the bar, if I go to press it, there's a very real chance that something's just gonna bust loose and I'm gonna be finished. I might need surgery, who knows. If this was any other competition, I would just respectfully bow out, get healed up, and compete another day. And I could still do that. I mean, I don't have to compete at Worlds to get the numbers. It doesn't matter what meet you compete at. As long as it's a sanctioned event, your numbers would count towards records or titles or rankings regardless. But it was the idea of competing on the biggest stage against all the best athletes. That was the appeal. It's not whether or not, I would break records or not. I just wanted to be up there with the other, what I consider elite athletes. And I've been talking to some other guys that are Hall of Fame lifters, guys in the USPA and the IPL, and they all said, you could still compete. You could, if you wanted to, show up and just put a token amount of weight on the barbell and do a lift to stay in the meet. No, you're not going to win because you won't get the total you want, but you could still compete. You could still show up and stand up there with everybody else. And I very well may do that. I haven't decided yet. A lot of it's going to be how I'm feeling. This weekend, I had planned on working out to my openers. It was always a tradition of mine to do a mock powerlifting meet about a week before any competition. And I would put all the gear on that I'm going to wear on the platform, and I would do all 3 lifts up to my opener weights. And then that's what I would show up and open with. And I still plan on doing that this weekend. I don't know what I'm going to do about the bench yet. I've been doing this peptide therapy, and the stuff, it works wonders. They are wonderful, but it's not a miracle. It doesn't magically fix everything in a short amount of time. It still takes time to heal. So I don't know if it's a big enough window for me to realistically expect to be able to do this without major risk. So I'm really torn on what I should do. And if it was any other meet, if I wouldn't have started a GoFundMe and I wouldn't have asked people to help sponsor me for this, I wouldn't feel obligated to compete. But because people have donated their time and their money and their effort, I feel like if I was going to bow out, I would at the very least want to pay back everybody that donated to me. But then there's another part of me that just doesn't want to take no for an answer. I'm going to go up there and I'm going to try no matter what happens. And I'm on this fence. I keep going back and forth. No, that's not the smart thing to do. Why would you risk ending your career just for pride? Or, man, you're only going to get one shot at this. You should go for it. Screw it if you're going to need surgery. And I keep going back and forth. You know, what's the sensible thing to do? And I'm giving myself anxiety over it. And I've been keeping myself up at nights. It's sickening. It makes me sick to my stomach to think of all the work that I put in. And here I am. I might not even be able to do it. But maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong. And I went nearly 46 years, 100% natural, no injuries. And even though I've only been powerlifting for about 10 years, I've been lifting heavy for a lot longer than that. And I've always trained pretty hard. And I thought about, well, what changed? What changed with me in the way that I'm training, the way that I'm doing things that has made me so injury prone this last year? What am I doing differently? I'm a very data-driven guy. I have all the spreadsheets of all of my old training logs going all the way back to when I was 45 years old. And there's three big changes in my life. The first is I'm not natural anymore. And, you know, I went from 100% natural to being at a minimum on testosterone, and at a maximum I did a cycle. The second thing is I switched from a volume-based program to a high-intensity, high-effort program. Lower volume, high intensity. And then of course the third thing is I'm making YouTube videos. And I think it's a combination of these three things that has, for all intents and purposes, ruined my lifting. Well, let me explain. But before I switched to all this stuff, if I wasn't feeling up to training, I would just stop. You know, I wouldn't go all out. I wouldn't put a huge amount of effort in. I wasn't trying to PR every week. I wasn't trying to do something better than I did the week before. But ever since I started making these YouTube videos, I almost feel compelled to try to beat my previous best so that I have something to show YouTube. It's almost created a monster out of me. Like on days where I'm not feeling up to it, I find myself forcing myself to complete sets because YouTube kind of has given me this complex where if I don't beat my last best previous, then you get a ration of crap from people who don't even lift, saying, "Oh, you're only as good as your last lift," and that's just stupid. I mean, that's a ridiculous way to train, and I know this. I know it's a dumb way to train, but I'm still compelled to try to outdo myself, to try to do something better than I did the week before. But so there's a double edge to that too, because you could also make the argument that if it wasn't for me pushing myself the way I was, would I have even gotten to the numbers where I'm at? Because I wasn't making significant progress training the other way. And let's face it, my numbers shot up. They shot way up. And you couple all that with the undeniable fact that, you know what, we're not getting any younger. I mean, I am 48 years old. What do you expect? I mean, you can't, PR or outdo yourself every single week, killing yourself to be better than you were the week before so that you can get views or whatever and not expect consequences of some sort. And for me, they come in the form of overtraining, and it makes sense because when I went to the hospital a week ago and spent the night and they found elevated CPK levels in my blood, which would indicate muscle breakdown, it lends itself to the theory that I'm overtraining. So if I'm in a constant state of overtraining, we're now seeing the results of that, where the body's breaking down and everything's starting to fight me. YouTube's a funny animal. We only show our best. We boil down our clips to 1 minute or less, and we just show our best, and we try to present ourselves as this thing that we're not, these pictures of perfection, only having good days. We only show our happy moments. We only show ourselves at our strongest. And that's just not me. The truth of the matter is, I'm not that guy. Most of my journey has been struggle. I remember something similar happened when I got out of the Marine Corps. I had blown my knee almost in half, and I had to have reconstructive surgery at all the major connective tissue points. And I was in an immobilizer for over a year. I had to do a ton of physical therapy just to get to where I could walk again. And I remember having the same thoughts, like, well, what am I going to do now? If I can't be a Marine, what am I going to do? And throughout, the time I've been on this planet, I did one thing until I couldn't do it anymore, and then I had to learn to do something else. So then it begs the question, well, if I'm not going to be a power lifter, what's next? And for, what is Gen X power? What am I all about? And am I just a power lifter? Am I an athlete? Or am I just a guy that's getting older, trying to hang on to some, glory days? And no, the answer is I'm everything and nothing. I'm me. I've never really cared if I was an elite level power lifter or what title I've ever wanted to give myself. I've always just wanted to have an adventure. I've always just wanted to try new things and put myself out there. And in the spirit of competition, it wasn't about whether I won or lost. It was about just participating and doing my best. And it just so happens I'm a fairly decent power lifter. So maybe I've stuck with this longer than I should have, but I never set out to just be a power lifter. I used to lift heavy to supplement the other endeavors that I wanted to participate in. I like to play basketball. I like to do MMA. I like to do a little bit of boxing. I like bike riding. I like going hiking. I like doing a ton of stuff. And lifting was just a way to make sure that I was keeping strong so that I could keep doing those things that I loved well as I got older. I got young kids, man. They're starting to run circles around me. I am going to compete. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my best. Now, whether or not that means I go all out and go for the records, or whether or not it means I bow out gracefully, I still don't know yet. The good news is I was able to cross-enter. So I am competing for the lifts individually as well. So it's not a total wash if I'm not able to bench press. And who knows? Maybe I'll get under the barbell, everything will be fine. All I need is one good press. And if I can get anything over 300 pounds, I could still make up for it with the squat and the deadlift. I could still have over 1,600 pound total. And that's not for nothing. I really wanted to talk about this because it's been weighing heavily on my mind. And I feel like I'm not representing my truest self. And that was always the goal of this channel. It wasn't just to show me at my very best and to try to show how much stronger I am than everybody. I wanted to show everything, the whole process, everything that's involved, the pain, the suffering, the struggle, the ups and the downs, and all that goes with it. And if I'm not showing the good and the bad, then all I'm doing is just replicating everything else that's on YouTube. And there's tons of that already. One more week, guys. You guys have been supporting me this far, and I'm not giving up.